Hello and welcome back to the channel Darkness to Christ. Today I'm going to do a video explaining the only way for us to bring heaven to earth. Now, when we were originally conceived into this world through Adam, we had a relationship with the Father, and we didn't need the Bible, we didn't need religious text, we didn't need anything because we had a living relationship with the Father. But when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, which is of the intellect, he fell. And ever since then, if that's how the story goes, whether it's I think it may be an analogy, but we fell from our spiritual nature into our fleshly nature. And when we're in our flesh, we don't know God because we can only know God through our spirit. So, like, I was born into the world and I grew up in the flesh and just like, there's no God. God doesn't exist because how can it exist? We just live as flesh and we die. That's it. Now, Jesus Christ came and he told people, you must be born again in the spirit. That was his main teaching. He said, you must be born again in the spirit. Now, what that means is you're born again as a spirit. So you return to our original nature, what Adam had in the garden, because Adam was a spirit and he communed with the Father, or he had the spiritual nature. So we must be born again in the spirit. Now, what happened to me when I was born again in the spirit, I had a spiritual awakening, the same thing. And I started turning away from the flesh and feeding my spirit, like for example, through fasting, through giving up bad practices and bad habits, moving away from sexual habits. And that the more you move away from the flesh, the more you become spiritual in nature. And then you realize, well, if I have fleshly parents and I am a spirit now, who created my spirit? And then you obviously realize that you must have a spiritual father, i.e., God, and that Christ was his son who came into the world to restore us to our spiritual nature. Now, how the world can be healed and how we can bring heaven to earth is once everyone's born again, our spirit is renewed into the spirit of God, and Christ was the example. His love was the nature of God. And when we're born again in the spirit of Christ, we have the nature of God. So I feel I have the loving heart and nature and understanding of Christ and God because he's coming through me into my spirit. And my spirit and how we know our spirit is our conscience. So, for an example, I say we don't necessarily need the Bible to know thou shalt not kill. Our conscience tells us that there is something wrong in killing, in raping, unless you're obviously sick in the head. But our conscience tells us the truth. And when we're renewed, our conscience is renewed and our spirit is renewed, and we'll live like that. So if everybody is born again in the spirit and that spiritual has the spiritual nature, then the kingdom of heaven will be entering earth through our spirits and being pushed out onto the world. So then if politicians, if the rich people all become born again, just imagine we would have heaven on earth because our spiritual nature is heaven, our fleshly nature is hell for the most part. So that is how I am sure we can have heaven on earth, as Jesus said in the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, by being born again, returning to our spiritual nature as Adam had, and bringing the Garden of Eden and God's love to the world. That is how we will have peace and heaven on earth. Thank you. If you like it, like the video, subscribe for more, and God bless everyone. Goodbye.